Hi, my name is Wen Lee Lim, and I'm the Chief Impact Officer at Flourish DX and host of this podcast. So we really love this podcast to host conversations and practical guidance from service providers, innovative tech platforms, practitioners, and employers in the Southeast Asian region. So we really believe in taking a shared responsibility approach to workplace mental health. So not just as individuals, but as employers, colleagues, and the broader community to create workplaces that are mentally healthy so that we can prevent suffering and promote human flourishing. So today I have a very special guest, and I know I say that every week, but actually I can't have favorites, but we have Michael Cheah, the CEO of HealthServe here in Singapore. Welcome.
Hi, Ben. Thank you for having me.
No, thank you so much for being on. Just before this, we were talking about how busy the year is, and we're only in February. And so
only in February, yeah.
And so maybe can you let us know, what's your year been like so far? And then we'll kind of dive into what you do and what is HealthServe.
Wow. Where do I start? the year started, I think, it started really well, I think. We had our Christmas, we had our New Year, we had our break, and then when the first week of January came, everything started running again, So, the reason is because, at HealthServe, we provide a 24/7 crisis helpline. And it's always during the festive seasons that you get all types of calls. And therefore, there's a lot of requirement for us to just be available to those who need someone to talk to. So yeah, it became really packed, and we're seeing more and more people coming to our clinics. We are seeing people anxious to know how to maneuver through this season of work. So maybe just an introduction about who HealthServe is. So HealthServe, we are a non-profit organization. We provide medical care towards migrant workers, low-wage migrant workers who work in Singapore. And we've been doing this for over 15 years. And at HealthServe, we provide medical care, we provide dental care, counseling, and of recent, we actually provide a 24/7 crisis helpline dedicated for migrant workers to call us at any point of time should they need any help, from emotional to financial to even just any work-related issues as well. So yeah, that's in essence who we are.
Yeah, I love the work of HealthServe. And I think for those who don't know about you guys, what's the kind of the population, the demographics of these low-wage migrant workers working in Singapore?
Yeah, majority of the low-wage migrant workers come from South Asian countries. Majority of them are from India, Bangladesh. We have a handful of workers that comes from the rest of the world, example, like from China, Malaysia, Philippines, Vietnam, Myanmar as well. In Singapore, we have over 830 low-wage migrant workers working in Singapore.
130,000.
830,000. That's right. Thank you for that. Yeah. And it dropped, actually, to be honest with you. Pre-pandemic, we were closer to about 1 million. And the reason for the drop is really because of COVID-19. One of it is which job security. Second one is fear of the COVID-19. And some just needed to go home and to be with their loved ones and families. So just for the past 2 years, I think we've seen a decline of numbers of workers working in Singapore. And out of the 830,000 workers working in Singapore, there's a group of workers that we focus on, which is under the construction, marine, and process sector. These are the people group that actually visits HealthServe more regularly than the other sectors. And they have nearly, they have nearly about 330,000 workers at the moment. Yeah. And the reason why we focus a lot on the construction, marine, and process sector is because these are the group of people that we believe have in terms of their work, have greater risk of exposure towards accidents and require rehabilitation, or just need someone to be assisting them, when there's a work injury.
Yeah.
So,
Well, it's amazing that I mean, this service is provided free of charge to them, and you being a charity, and I know you work with a lot of volunteers, and which actually my husband and I, like, we loved volunteering with HealthServe during that time. I think it's not just the volunteering, but it's actually creating relationships and just meeting, and what we call them in Singapore is brothers.
yeah.
Yeah, and it's such an interesting term. Like, I walk past the one that the group of guys that clean our block here, and they're like, "Good morning, sister. Good morning, brother." And it's just such a beautiful community feel about this population who are so isolated actually from their families. They're here actually for years by themselves.
Yeah, yeah, and most of them come because of their family. I mean, that's the reason why they're here, right? I mean, they're really here to provide a better life for the families back home. They are here to really provide a future for either their younger brother, um, or if they have a young child, it's really just for the betterment of their families. And they spend years and years and years apart from the family, and that's kind of the sacrifice they make actually just to do so. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And so that's why kind of I was thinking about this podcast and just mentally healthy workplaces.
Mm,
I was like, I have to have Michael on because when we talk about the workplace, it's not just the office worker sitting behind a desk,
mm,
in a beautiful commercial building. Like you said, there's like 800,000 of low wage migrant workers in
yeah.
Singapore. And so maybe we'll touch that as a first topic,
Mm,
how is it like for these individuals working in, in the construction, because that's where you predominantly deal with, and how does HealthServe then come in? And I know the 24/7 crisis hotline is available, and that really started just last year, wasn't it? To meet that gap, to meet that need.
yeah, yeah. We started our 24/7 crisis helpline August last year. We launched it officially, and within weeks we had uh, yeah, hundreds of calls, and it was so we do see the great need. Um, yeah. Well, when pandemic strike back in 2020, I think one of the key change that the workers had to do was to isolate themselves. And I'm not sure if you recall, in Singapore, due to the living conditions and the close proximity with one another, um, the COVID-19 spread really rapidly amongst the workers, and therefore they were kind of isolated. They were actually quarantined off, um, and most of them had to remain either in the dormitories. They were locked down in the dormitories. They were locked down in either isolation facilities, or we have recently termed it as recovery facilities, um, and that didn't really end for them. It still continues. Today, the workers still are subjected to a certain movement restrictions, and they're not really allowed to go out. One of the fear of the ministry is really that, that the the concern of having the spread occur again with amongst the workers, and which is a relatively valid concern, um, and therefore they want to provide a safety net bubble kind of thing for the community living in the community. However, the unintended consequences of that was workers' emotional well-being really took a toll. I remember the very first time when they were under lockdown, the very first week, they were really excited. They were saying, "Oh wow, I get to rest. I don't have to work. I get paid." They were really excited, and we thought, "Oh, sounds good," but we were quite sure they're going to be a bit worried after. And rightly enough, our second week when we went in, and we did a town hall session with them, straight away there were anxious faces coming to us and say that, what is this COVID-19? Will I die from it? what's going to happen to me? Will the government take care of me? If I catch COVID, are they going to just send me home? Because there were a lot of false fake news spiraling around. And because of that, um, we kind of journeyed with the workers throughout, right? Explaining to them, giving them the right information the best we can, and then working with the Ministry of Manpower to share and provide the necessary information to every single worker. There were 800,000 of them. There was just so many. So, and we just couldn't. So what happened was during that time, we noted that the emotional well-being really took a huge toll. We realized too that the concerns was not only on their own safety and well-being, they were very worried for the family and loved ones back home, because by then, the pandemic was all over the world. So the state of feeling helpless is a very real thing. And I don't know whether many of us actually have ever felt this way. Just the sense of receiving a call from back home, crying for help, and then you are over at this country, unable to do anything. And I recall I had a conversation with a young man before. And the reason why he was brought to my attention was because one of the dorm operators noted that he hasn't been eating for the past 3 or 4 days. And we wondered about that. And so I met him. I just, we made an appointment. It wasn't easy to go into dormitories during those days, but HealthServe were given with one of the privileged organizations that was able to do so. And we went in, and with a translator beside me, we spoke to this brother. I said, "What happened? Why aren't you eating?" And he shared something like, "How can I be eating when my family back home is starving?" And that struck me. I was taken aback. I was thinking, wow. And he said, my wife and my child have not eaten for a week. While in Singapore, I have so much food. How could I eat? And to be honest, we were a little bit struck. We didn't know what to do. So we counseled him, we encouraged him and said, "You stay strong for your family. You stay healthy for your family." And I asked him, "What is the one thing that you hope to do? What is the one thing that you want to do?" And his request was, "Can I just go home? I just want to go and see my family." And in a Singapore logical mind, it says that if you're here, you can work, you can get money, you can still provide. But for him, family came first. So he's very aware that by going back home, he's gonna lose his job. He's likely not be able to find many jobs at home. But he felt that he needed to be with his wife and his child. And his elderly parents. So and I recall during that period of time, it was one of the hardest things to do, to send someone home, because countries were under lockdown. There were limited flights. But I was very thankful for some of the partnership we had with the Ministry of Manpower. We actually managed to send him home. Though it was about 2 to 3 weeks later, but we did manage to get him home. And I remember the moment he went home, he actually sent a photo of his family and him, just to say that I've reached home, I'm safe, and thank you. And that was it, So I was thinking about the mental and emotional well-being of workers today. It is a real thing. They're trying to manage it as best as they can. Workers are very resilient people. I mean, they are willing to let go of many things. They're willing to sacrifice many things to be able to come here. So they are very resilient. But it doesn't mean it's not taken any toll on them.
Yeah, I think everyone's been pushed to the limit, even for, the most of resilient people. In that kind of recollection that you just said, I love that the dormitory operator took notice. And so really, workplaces are all about a community And that if they didn't notice that individual, like he would have just, kind of really suffered alone, and it would have been really, really bad. But the fact that, I love hearing that HealthServe works with the Ministry of Manpower, with the dorm operators. It really takes a whole community to keep each other well. It's such a difficult time. And even though now a lot of people are able to travel, it's a lot more freer, but we always forget that there's still a very large group of people who are not enjoying the same freedoms and are still going through a really difficult time. So thank you for the work that HealthServe continues to do. For those that were in Singapore in the last, or in Asia in the last couple of years, migrant workers and low-wage workers were really, really big in terms of awareness and people wanting to help. I'm sure HealthServe and other nonprofits in this area were inundated with volunteers.
Yeah.
But as time moves on, one of the things that we forget very quickly as well. So I really wanted to use this opportunity and this podcast to highlight again that in our community, we still need to, plug those gaps. There are still a lot of people who need help. But in helping as well, your own staff and your own well-being would have been a difficult time. So I remember speaking to you, I think about 6 months ago, just about mental health at your workplace. So how has that been for your team, seeing the enormous need of these? There's 800,000 of them. How has that been in managing your team and your volunteers?
Well, I'm really, really proud, thankful for the team. They really rock to me. But when the pandemic struck, when people were just running away from the COVID-19, our team actually raised up their hands, say, "Can we go in?" Because the need was so great. And I think because they saw the need on the ground, all of them just roll up their sleeves. It doesn't really matter what position you're holding. You could be holding a back-end position like a finance person and yet doing front-end stuff in the dormitory, running around together, because the need was just so great. And we carried on that way for a good 1 year. I think in 2020. In 2021, things slowed down a little bit. We were able to normalize to somewhat, and we kind of adjusted back to some form of normalcy, where what it means is that the team went back to what they were, why they were here for. So, for example, the back-end office started resuming the back-end work. We had the volunteer management team, and then the front social workers, and all those things. And as we mentioned, we were worried about burnout, because our team was, when they went back to the work that they used to do, they continued, advocating. They continued just running on the ground as well on weekends and the likes. And people who generally work in nonprofit organizations, we're just passionate about the thing. So we look at the work and we say, wow, we can't let them go without any help. So, and we were worried about and I was worried about our team. I was worried for burnout. I was worried for how they were feeling, especially if you keep hearing negative news or stories, and it does have an impact on the person. And we did, so therefore we actually did a survey. We did a survey about our team's well-being, just to know how they are, how they feel that we can be of a support, how we can, as management team, come alongside to bring support or relief. And I think we were quite surprised with actually our survey. Majority of them felt that they are okay, they are able to manage, tired, but there was percentage of our team members actually felt burnout. One actually felt depressed because of the circumstances surrounding So we took immediate actions. I mean, we did. So
Yeah, you need to. Yeah.
yeah. So yeah, and talking to you, and during that time, we were just having our chat, right, about how important this is going to be and how important this is. Um, we actually we did take intentional steps to remind everyone to pace ourselves. We know that we can't slow down very much in the sense that the work is always there, but we need to pace ourselves.
Yeah.
We need to then we actually set up a Care Bear team.
Oh, I love the
Yeah.
name. I used to love Care Bears.
Yeah, exactly. So it tells the age.
Thanks, Michael.
So we had our first Care Bear team from our own staff team, and then they tried to do things internally. So we try to do as much as we can. To be honest with you, it's not ideal with the current circumstances and limitations right now, but we try to have a stronger engagements with the team, not just about work,
Yes.
more about who you are as a person. How is life? How are you outside work? Are you coping well? And we really wish for every single team members and hopefully to be able to support every single team member um, in every aspect of what they are going through, from family concerns to to just um, sometimes even financial concerns. So give an example, we do have team members who are working in India, whose families lives in India, and because of and the her elderly parents were very unwell, and she requested, "Can I just go back for a few months? But I don't wish to stop working." So actually, we enabled that. We allowed her to go back. She's now in India. Um, and some of our team members felt that the current work that I've been doing is just it's been wonderful, but it's tiring, and I just need a break.
Yeah.
So we actually gave some of them a few days off, or a week or two,
Yeah.
and just to recover.
Recuperate.
Yeah,
Yeah.
recuperate. Exactly. That's
Yeah.
the thing. So yeah.
Actually, yesterday, while you were talking, reminded me of a podcast. Actually, we have another one in Canada,
Hmm.
and they were talking actually about a term called psychological PPE.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's really interesting. And she talked about micro practices actually for people working in quite traumatic situations. I mean, when you're on the other end of the hotline, or when you're, constantly, dealing with cases and in terms of people coming to you, there is a lot of like kind of protection yourself that you need to have in place. So actually, I'll put it on the notes of this podcast, but I'll send it to you because it might be very helpful to actually. Sometimes it's the terminology and the framework, right? But it's
Right.
actually just small practices of how you do kind of decompress and keep yourself safe from a psychological point of view. In doing the work, because that episode talked about compassion fatigue and these kind of concepts where, like you said, people working in the nonprofit world, it's all hard, right? And I've been there as well, because the stories and just hearing what they're going through, it does affect you.
Yeah.
And so then how do you process it, and how do you also switch off and draw, and in a way have boundaries to keep yourself healthy? So I think that specific episode, I think, super helpful actually for anyone listening, and you do work in the nonprofit space, or caregiving, or in the social service sector. I thought it was very, very helpful. And just thought I'd share it. So I guess, the work is incredibly, I mean, there's a big road ahead. Like, we are not even through it right now, even though on the surface it could seem that way. So what is your hopes for the future of healthy and mentally healthy workplaces? And maybe we'll start with the group that you work with, that you serve, your clients and beneficiaries. And also then we'll talk about the nonprofit sector in terms of how would you see just workplaces improve to help take care of each other?
Right. Okay. Like rightly pointed out, it really takes a community to really support one another. Yeah, my dream has always been allowing the workers to really being able to integrate into our society, integrate well. I like a term that someone says they're not a part of us, they're really part of us. And I think it's still work in progress towards that area, right? And I think as long as we are able to really allow them to have the same level of, we don't even need big things. We just need to allow them to experience the same um, privileges of what the other residents here receives. I think that's a very big step towards supporting the community of the migrant workers living in Singapore. I feel I would like to say that the community within migrant workers, they're always a bunch who feel, in their own words, they feel that they are alienated. They feel that they're always sidelines. They know that they are not necessarily going to be, given the first priorities of many things, which is a sad thing, but that's how they have accepted that fact. But I think it's not necessarily right. So I think it's good for us to, if where possible, I would really love to see, in future, how a society can really have an integrative society, a society that's compassionate to one another. You have heard about stories of how workers cared for an elderly in Singapore, crossing the street, pushing cars that was, stalled and things like that. You've never heard of Singaporeans, or many of them, of which do on the other way around. So I think if as we can grow and develop, I would really love to see this. And in workplaces, in NGOs, it's been known. I'm not sure if you're aware that there's this term of mass resignation, and
Yeah, the
it
great
happens.
resignation.
Yeah, it's happening amongst the people working in nonprofit, and understandably so. I think people working there are generally burnt out, and I think this is important for every single one of us. That this is not just one organization work. I think as the community needs continue to will continue to be there, I think it's important for us to really have avenues of help. To be honest with you, we are setting up in HealthServe. We are very intentional in seeking out a pastoral ministry for the team. We actually provide counseling, a person they can turn to for counseling sessions should they need. And I think, and the team members' feedback has been very helpful. I think we are also now trying to be more intentional in terms of having a day off for every single team member. So what we have learned is that even though if you take leave just to take a day away because everyone else is still working, you tend to just go back to work because it's just so easy. You just pick up a phone and you see a WhatsApp or what email and the like, and then you just respond to it and you get sucked into it. And last year, HealthServe, we actually implemented something called, everyone's rest day. So we shut the whole organization down for just one day. So everyone, no emails, no WhatsApp. We don't talk about work for just for one day. And just so that we can have one day of reset before we start again. I think those are small things that we do. I've heard of other organizations doing a lot of other things. And I think, as we said about community, I think it's high time for NGO communities to come together to just provide support to each other. And that could be a great thing. Yeah.
I mean, in other countries, I know back home in Australia, that every caseworker has like once I think an hour of counseling that's paid for by the organization, and it's structured in. So I don't think it's even optional in a way. Like, you know, it's very common practice that everyone will go there because, they also need an outlet. And a safe environment to unload and just to process things themselves. So I'm really glad to hear that that is something that HealthServe is doing. And yes, it's always coming back to the community about how can we help each other. But I think sometimes it's actually knowing the need. I did feel that during the height of the pandemic where we knew the need, like migrant workers, like really, really struggling, everyone stepped up. And so I guess it's like keeping that in the headlines in a way,
Right.
keeping that front of mind and what are the needs. Because if people know, then people will go there. So I'm going to give this airtime right now. What does HealthServe need? If people are listening and say, how can I help? What help do you need at HealthServe or just in the broader work of serving the migrant worker community?
Yeah, you know, the needs are always great and plentiful. For one, I think even just caring for our team members, nobody really. I'm very thankful that there are one or two volunteers who actually bake cakes for us, you know, just to thank the team for just serving alongside. I thought that was really lovely. But to be an avenue of help to our team members has been lacking. It, again, as I said, that there are many of us who are actually quite tired. Some are reaching burnout. So it's been great. And towards our beneficiaries, I mean, we still need a lot of volunteers for our helpline callers. So if you are available, our crisis helpline still requires a few volunteers. Our medical clinic requires quite a bit of help as well. Every day, we need to turn nearly 20 to 30% of workers away. So this is because we have limited volunteer resources serving alongside with us. And we have to intentionally cut off the number of patients we can see. If not, you know, our clinic will just go through the night and then our volunteers will be burnt out. But in doing so, we actually turn maybe 20 to 30 workers away every night. And these are people who needs help, seeking for help. So we're hoping to open additional days. We used to open 5 days a week. Because of the pandemic, we have reduced it to 3 days a week. And looking at the needs, I'm really hoping to start our 4th session sometime this year. So those are just some of the basic needs. And one of the great needs, if you are counseling trained, and if you are able to speak, you know, be it Tamil or any other languages, Tagalog or Burmese or Thai, any language that you have, we are going dorm to dorms, training, equipping, teaching people about well-being. Now, and when we will actually be tapping on Ernie on some of the things, because we're talking about back care, you know, about physical back care. And
I'm going to volunteer him. It's a yes now. So Ernie's my husband, who's a physio.
and you know what? Those are very important things that we think of that's needed. The 3 most important common response that we hear from the workers are backache, gastric issues, and then the 3rd one is they have gum diseases. So these are the 3 very common things we hear from the workers. And we often ask, so what treatment do you do? He says, well, I just eat Panadol and hope for the best. So, and that has been what we are trying to do, is that we're trying to go and teach them about how do you first find healing, and if you are well, how do you prevent from getting.
Yeah, preventative work is the best form. Because we have seen some of these injured workers, and it has a big toll on your mental health. If you're unable to work, and the full reason why you're in Singapore is to
Yeah.
work and send money back. It's a downward spiral.
Yeah.
So if we can, equip people to know how to take care of themselves, physically and mentally, and avoid that, actually, hopefully you don't have to open 4 days, 5 days, 6 days a week if we do
Exactly.
more of the upstream and prevention work. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah,
Well,
exactly.
yeah. And so maybe to you personally, I mean, you running this organization, dealing with all of volunteers, how do you stay kind of mentally healthy and to stay well?
Uh, well, thankful for support. Actually, I'm thankful for my family. Well, my wife supports the work that I do quite significantly, and that kind of helped. So I think for me, I'm very intentional in carving out time. So if I don't meet that, if I need to take away that window, I'll make sure I'll replace it on another day within the same week. Um, so my Saturday evenings and my Sunday mornings are blocked away for self, and that is the time that I'll take it to spend with families or just hang out with some friends, whatever that I need to do just to recharge. And if I need to run an event on that particular weekend, I'll ensure that I do my day off or whatever it is on my weekdays. Um, that has helped me keep sane to a certain extent.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and I think just being open and able to share with and having people to come alongside, that has helped me significantly as well. So I'm very thankful for good, you know, my wife who's always there, but I also have friends, colleagues who are actually able to just share with us, with me about, and me sharing what are the concerns and fears and the dreams that we have. So I guess that has helped me kept sane.
Mm. Oh, yeah, because I mean, I've seen you
Mm.
guys work and just, the demands in the last 2 years. I mean, I think if you thought you were busy before the pandemic, it's like not even close.
Yeah.
Um, but no, thank you so much for the work that HealthServe does. And, I'm one of your biggest advocate in terms of, how can we get more people on board to help and to work together as a community? Because, I mean, for the listeners as well, like during that time, I actually got involved to set up a op shop
Yeah.
because the workers were going into these recovery centers and they didn't have any clothes or much clothes with them because as soon
Mm.
as they were picked up as positive, they were whisked away. And so I love clothes and fashion, and so it was like combining all my loves and like setting up this shop. And during that process, really getting to know some of the brothers as people and hearing their stories. And so I guess that's like the first step, right? Is to create community, to hear their stories, to make them feel included. And that would be my hope as well. There's so many of them who spent, I met some of them like 10, 13, 20 years in Singapore.
Mm.
It's not like they're just coming by, doing a short stint.
Mm.
They're really part of our local fabric here.
Mm.
And so, yeah, in any way that we can help, please let us know. And I volunteer up Ernie and any of my friends to be able to help.
Thank you.
So thank you so much for your time. And I know that what you're doing in terms of trying to improve the workplaces and continuing discussions with the Ministry of Manpower to really improve the working conditions of these brothers and then being a source of help. So unfortunately, there will still be the gaps and people will need to reach out to a crisis support. So thank you so much for doing that. And yeah, I would love to hear, hopefully a year from now that things have improved for,
Mm.
the nonprofit sector and construction sites and, the physical work that we can do more preventative work in the space
Mm.
and get them access to help. And to get more community members still involved in it, and that it's not a forgotten 2020, kind of effort. It's a long game, but hopefully year by year it just keeps improving.
Yeah.
But yeah, thank you so much for your time on here as well. And for those people, who want to, reach out to HealthServe, you can get them through the website. I think there must be volunteer forms and how to get involved on there. But thank you for being on the podcast. And for those who listen in, just subscribe on our podcast LinkedIn page and stay up to date with upcoming guests. And you can also follow Flourish DX on LinkedIn if you'd like to see a short clip of this conversation or a video version on the YouTube page of Flourish DX. And please connect with Michael and myself on LinkedIn if you'd like to continue the conversation, get involved. And so thank you for listening in, and just wishing you all a really great day, and I will see you at the next episode. Take care.